This is part of our Breakfast Club series, so we're having breakfast for dinner tonight, just because that's the way schedules rolled. So a little bit about 100 Rural Women. We really are all about creating connections and inspiring leadership. We see a future where more women lead positive change for themselves, their communities, their states, their nation, and globally. We're committed to building leadership through networks, mentorship, education, and civic engagement. And we are a nonprofit and non-issue oriented organization that supports rural women. The Breakfast Club, as I mentioned, is one of the first programs we ever had, which when we launched during COVID, and it was a great opportunity for us to lift up women doing incredible work. And we will continue to do that. And we're going to be doing it in a variety of different ways moving forward. So just happy to have everybody here. And thanks for chiming in the chat where you're joining us from tonight. A little bit about this project. Jasmine will go into, she'll go much deeper into the history of the project, but this really emanated from the 100 meetings that we did across the state, learning from women, how can we add value, and how do we address challenges to not just serving in leadership, but supporting other women that you may know that are interested in serving in leadership. And we decided to start in the civic sector because we've done some work in the civic sector, and we have a goal to move beyond that.
Kind of segueing into what we're doing here today, Civic Mentorship Network is comprised of rural civic leaders who serve as mentors for new women pursuing public service and leadership positions. This network provides a coordinated method for aspiring leaders to make the person-to-person connections that give access to resources that are valuable to enduring success. At 100 Rural Women, we find that success in engaging and mentoring more rural women to serve in public service leadership roles is essential to keeping our democracy strong. So I am now going to turn it over to Jasmine for a presentation of our research and findings.
Yeah, hello everybody. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. We put together a presentation. So I just wanted to say welcome to our, we're sharing our results from our Civic Mentorship Network Pilot. So welcome to this, and I'm so excited to share what we've been doing. It's been a little over a year now since I have been starting on this. So kind of going right into it. I just wanted to say, like, here, meet the team. We've kind of already met Alexis, who was a fantastic person to work with throughout the year, and me and her definitely collaborated a lot on the Civic Mentorship Network. Holly, I just met, but sounds like she's going to be a great fit for 100 Rural Women. And then Teresa, I've known forever, I feel like. I am Jasmine. I am the former graduate research assistant for 100 Rural Women. I was kind of the lead on this project, so you're going to hear from me a lot today. But yeah, so let's just get right into it. So our past research that has guided us to develop this program stemmed from 100 and 100. And this research I actually got to be a part of when I was in my undergrad experience. I was an intern. And what we did was we traveled around the state virtually of Minnesota. And from there, we collected data from women, and we actually coded over 3,000 requests for support, which was super wild and also very informative. And one of those requests was mentorship. So we've kept that in our mind as we created this program. And just last year in 2022, in the spring, we had some grad students from the Humphrey School of Public Affairs. They did a project where they interviewed elected women, and this project's called The Barriers, Breakthroughs, and Backbone of Rural Elected Women. And that research also really guided us to what we did this past year and what me and Alexis will be talking about. So kind of the timeline of this project, it started off when I joined as a graduate research assistant with 100 Rural Women in the summer of 2022. And during that time, we collected data, and as we go throughout this presentation, we'll go further in depth about what all these look like, but right now I'm just going to give a quick overview. So yeah, first we collected data about women that are in office, and then we went into these things called Learn About It sessions, where we learned more about local offices that women were a part of, and we got to hear directly from the women that have served in those offices or were serving at the time. And then we developed this big survey that we sent out to our listserv that was around winter time, so like November 2022 to February 2023. And then after that survey, we decided to do a research pilot. So we started to prep in that January to May kind of timeline of this year of 2023. We fully launched the Civic Mentorship Network Pilot in the summer of 2023, so just this past summer. And then now we're kind of here as like, what's next for 100 Rural Women? So first I'm going to talk about the data collection. So what I did last summer with other interns was, last summer as in 2022, was we collected data on current women in office. And we did this so that we can have women and their emails, and we can do outreach to them so that we can ask them to be part of our network or be part of the Civic Mentorship Network. And so what we did was we alphabetized everything by township, county, city, school board, and then we looked at tribal nations and their elected offices. And during this time, we started to really brainstorm on how we wanted to build out the Civic Mentorship Network.
And after and sort of during that data collection process, we held our Learn About It sessions, which was our next step in this project. Basically, these Learn About It sessions were about 30 minutes. They were virtual, recorded. They're meant to be educational, to teach women about current and previous elected women and their experiences within those positions. So why did we hold these sessions? Mostly it was to pique interest and encourage others to pursue public office, specifically women, and create buzz around this network and really build it up so that we can ultimately support more women. And then this is a list of just the different people who we had present at our Learn About It session. So, and you can find the recordings of all of these on our website. So if you can just like search in Julie Rosen, blah, 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 or whatever. But we had a state senator, Julie Rosen, a sheriff, Kelly Lake, a county attorney, Michelle Sender Fisher, a town board member, Julie Lucas, 2 county commissioners, Terrell Clark and Sheila Kiskaden, U.S. Senate and Attorney General Heidi Heitkamp, Mayor City Council member Rita Albright, who I did see was here, and school board Luisa Tapero.
So then after these Learn About It sessions, we kind of transitioned into this large survey that we developed. So in this survey, we just wanted to collect information about how rural women want the Civic Mentorship ran, and also to see if women would be interested in being part of the Civic Mentorship Network. So the overall survey questions kind of looked at, would you want to be interested in, or would you be interested in this network? Would you be interested as a mentor or mentee? Depending on which one you picked, you would describe like the experiences you have or the experiences or knowledge you wanted to gain. And then everyone saw the questions like, how much time would you want to put into the Civic Mentorship Network? What kind of structure or format would you like to see the Civic Mentorship Network look like? And then how much involvement from 100 Rural Women would you like? So the results came in and we had 64 women complete the survey. Out of those 64 women, 78% of them said, yes, I would be interested in the Civic Mentorship Network. And from those women that said they weren't interested, we asked them why not. And a lot of them said they were just too busy. They were not looking for a mentor or mentee at the moment, or they were not looking to pursue a civic leadership position. And then from those participants that said yes, they were interested in the Civic Mentorship Network, 57% of those women said they would like to meet with their mentor or mentee once a month. 64% of women would prefer 100 Rural Women check-ins be about every 3 months. 81% of women preferred to have hybrid meetings, but that is only if it was possible to meet in person. And then 77% of women said they would like loose agendas for 100 rural women. So nothing super structured, like you have to follow this exact timeline and this exact prompt, but more like we give them some prompts they could do or some suggestions they could do during their mentorship meetings, and they can follow if they want to, or they can deviate from that.
The next sort of big step in this project was to prepare for the pilot, which Jasmine and I worked together and collaborated on with other interns and Teresa, I believe this last spring semester. So the beginning of this year. And sort of the steps to that, we planned out a matching process. So basically what our goal was to figure out the best way to match mentors and mentees together, and then outreach. So how are we going to best reach out to busy women and get them to sign up for the pilot so we can build up the network? And then another thing that we took into consideration was privacy. So we determined how we're going to keep our participants' information private and confidential, but how participants can have access to each other's information so that they can collaborate in this network. And then finally, we looked at what potential goals, what are the goals of the pilot, how will the pilot look, and what do we want participants to get out of the mentorship program.
So that brings us to the Civic Mentorship Network Pilot. After doing a bunch of planning and outreach, we finally got it started up this past summer in 2023. I just want to include this quote before we go fully into what the pilot looks like. One of our mentors at the end of the pilot quoted it as a sisterhood opportunity, and that really resonated with me. So the Civic Mentorship Network Pilot, this is kind of our very rough outline of what the steps of the pilot looked like. So first we had where we were meeting at 100 Rural Women, we met all the pilot participants. Then we started doing a matching process where we matched mentors and mentees with each other. After we matched those mentors and mentees, we had the mentors and mentees meet each other. And then throughout the pilot process, which the pilot ended up being about 6 weeks, we had 100 Rural Women check-ins with each mentor or mentee. At the end of the pilot, we conducted interviews with participants, and now we are on the last step where we are presenting our results. And we'll go into each of these steps a little bit further throughout this presentation. So for our participants, we had a variety of women from Minnesota participate. So we had 13 mentors and 13 mentees. The mentors on the map, if you look to the left, are the ones in yellow, and the mentees are the ones in blue. And then when we look at the race and ethnicity of our pilot participants, we have 11 mentors that identify as white, 1 mentor that identifies as Indigenous, and 1 mentor that identifies as Black. And then for our mentees, we have 11 participants that identify as white, 2 that identify as Indigenous, and none that identify as Black. Moving forward to our mentors and their ages, we had kind of a variety. So we had 5 mentors that were between the ages of 27 and 44. We had 5 between the ages of 45 and 64. And then we had 3 at the age of 65 or older. Looking at our mentees, we kind of had a variety, but as you can see, a majority of them were between the ages of 27 to 44 with 7 participants. And then we had 2 between the ages of 18 and 26, and then 4 between the ages of 45 and 64. So I thought this quote was really great to know that people came in here with specific goals. A mentor said, "My goal is how do we lift women up?" So our first step to the pilot was meeting the participants. 100 Rural Women, they sent out a survey indicating what participants were interested in. This was a survey where we got participants' consent to participate. And then we were also doing some email outreaching to all the women that we collected data on in the previous summer, of all those women that were in elected office. And then we conducted these sessions called Get to Know You sessions. So our original idea of these sessions were that we were going to have one large Zoom meeting where we do almost like a speed dating. So everyone would be in a breakout room, and then we'd have a mentor mentee meet each other for about 2 minutes. And then you'd go through every single person. So if you were a mentor, you'd go through all the mentees. If you were a mentee, you go through all the mentors, and you would meet each other for a couple minutes and really kind of get to know each other. However, we have some amazing women that were a part of this pilot. They are change makers in their communities, and they are just so busy that trying to schedule things with 26 women at the same time is difficult. So we decided to change our original idea into something more of like a smaller session where we had 1 to 2 participants at a time. And then we recorded these 2 to 3 minute videos of the participants, and we put that video onto their profile, which we will discuss pretty soon. But yeah, we just wanted to do those videos so that other participants can get a chance to know each other without having to find a time where they can meet on Zoom together.
And then sort of the next main step in the pilot was matching mentors and mentees. And since we had these sort of get to know you sessions, as Jasmine said, we sort of shifted to recording the videos. And so then our idea was to make a private web page where we would post the profiles, and mentors and mentees could browse each other's profiles and view their get to know you videos. This is just on the screen is a screenshot from our private web page, which has a little explanatory video on what we sort of did with or what our beginning plan was with starting the pilot, just information for our participants. And then once participants had a while to browse each other's profiles, we sent them a survey asking participants to select their top 3 mentors or mentees so that we could have the most accurate matches possible. And then sort of showing you guys what these profiles sort of look like. The bottom picture is meant to be the area where the video is embedded. And then I sort of made, I designed this and I made like a mock-up of these profiles, and as an example with Teresa and Jasmine, to sort of show, and I sent these to participants to sort of show what they look like, or Jasmine did One of Us, 100-Role Communications. And so that's what that sort of looked like there.
So after everyone got to view everyone's profile and indicate who they were interested in, 100-Role Women started doing matching. So we considered their personalities because we were able to attend Zoom meetings with them. We considered their interests, their goals, and then we also looked at the survey to see who they indicated were their top 3. And after doing all that, we kind of sent out an email saying like, congratulations, you have been matched with this mentor and mentee. And we asked mentors and mentees to schedule their own meetings with each other. And these were just kind of like a suggestion, like, or the meetings you had to do, but we suggested that they meet about once every 2 weeks. And for us, the meetings could look like anything. So a meeting could be a text message, a phone call, a video call. You can meet in person if that's possible. Just kind of whatever works best for the partnership. And then throughout the program, every 2 weeks, 100-Role Women did provide suggested goals and topics. Women did not have to do these goals and topics. It was more like an icebreaker, or you didn't know what to talk about. Then here are a couple of questions you can ask your mentor or mentee. So as I stated earlier, it was a 6-week program, and the first couple of weeks, these topics included just introductions, introduce yourself to your mentor or mentee. And once you get past that, maybe you can talk about communication skills. So communication skills entail discussing navigating sexism, and also like what kind of communication skills you use in the workplace. And then after those first 2 weeks, we roll into our next couple 2 weeks, and those topics included emotional and mental health. So what does work-life balance look like for you? How do you keep yourself mentally and emotionally healthy? How do you manage your stress? Stuff like that. And then our last 2 weeks of the program, we had women discuss community, peer support, and opportunities. So how do you make opportunities for yourself? How do you find community, especially if you're the only woman in the room, so you don't feel lonely, things like that. And then after those 6 weeks, we had our interviews. So we didn't really have topics, but we did want mentors and mentees to discuss whether they felt like they reached their goal in the mentorship program and were going to discontinue, or if they wanted to continue to reach a goal. And also if there was a specific skill that they really wanted to discuss with their mentor mentee, this was a time to do that.
And then once we sort of got the mentors and mentees matched up and they started meeting, we thought it would be a good idea to host these what we called open hours on Zoom, sort of sparked from the idea of Jasmine and I are college students, so we were like, oh, like professors have office hours, we should have that as an option available to participants. So we hosted these weekly, and we told mentors and mentees that we expected them to attend once a month, but if they were unable to attend, then we asked that participants sent an email updating us or some other form of communication there. We were very casual and flexible about what these check-ins could look like, and tried to frame it to what best served the participants. And then sort of what this looked like on the private web page, I just put together the open hours, and we tried to vary the times of the open hours so that they were at different times, because we knew that women had such varying different schedules. And as you see, the last time period, which we held interviews, we had an option for you to sign up for an interview time, and then for them to preview the interview questions so they knew what we were going to be asking for pilot feedback ahead of time. And after that, we sort of, after the mentors and mentees got meeting, when we were at the end of the timeline for the pilot, we had our end of pilot interviews, which were 30-minute Zoom one-on-one interview sessions with 100 Role Women staff and participants. And then we later realized that that's not necessarily an accessible option for everyone. So we gave the option to fill out an online Google form with their interview answers. And then we were then able to receive feedback from the participants about the program.
So we had 12 interview questions, so I'm just going to quickly read through all of them. This is what we asked every single one of our participants to answer. Our first question was, how did you find out about the Civic Mentorship Network? Next one was, describe your experience with 100 Rural Women's Communication. Then we had, did you like the private webpage? Do you like the matching process employed? Do you feel like we matched you accurately? Did you feel like the structure of the did you like the structure of the bi-weekly topics? Did you like the structure of 100 Rural Women check-ins? How accommodating was 100 Rural Women? How effective was the program? What is something you would change about the network? What is something you would like to remain about the network? And what advice would you give to future participants? So with our interviews, due to just various unforeseen reasons, not all participants were able to complete an interview, but we did get 15 people to complete it. We had 8 mentors and 7 mentees. So let's go into our findings and what we found from women through these interviews. So these were kind of like the big categories that we have found throughout all of these interviews. We found that women had positive experiences. They also had some suggestions for improvements to the program. They felt the program was pretty flexible. They felt like it was something unique, something they've never seen before. And then finally, they also felt like it was a good program where women get to support other women. So getting kind of deeper into these broader categories, we found that the majority of women expressed that they had a positive experience with the program, which is always great to hear as someone designing a program. Some of these positive experiences came from communication, such as 100 Rural Women being fast at replying to emails and also being able to use emails instead of constantly going on Zoom and trying to schedule meetings. They also felt like our email reminders were really great too. And then a lot of women like the private web page, the fact that we had some personal information that we didn't want out in the open was important to a lot of our participants and also to 100 Rural Women. So we're happy that participants felt like the private web page was secure and they liked it. Another popular comment that came up a lot was the matching process. A lot of women appreciated looking at those 2-minute videos that were made or looking through profiles and almost getting to like search and see who they might connect with the best. We also found that participants felt like 100 Rural Women was very accommodating, which makes us feel really appreciative because we have a lot of busy and important women that are making changes in their communities. So we want to make sure we're as accommodating to them as possible. And then overall, people felt like the program was effective for reaching their goals.
Sort of looking at some of the direct feedback, during the interviews, a mentee said on the matching process that our matching process was spot on. Another mentee said, I love the experience that I had with my mentor and felt an immediate, genuine connection. It was perfect. And so that's something that we really appreciate. And then on the private web page, it was helpful in navigating expectations and making connections. And then on overall effectiveness of the program, a mentee said, this program was hands down the most effective mentorship experience that I have had in the political space.
So no program is perfect, and obviously every program needs some improvements, and we really appreciate the feedback and women being honest. So the improvements that women suggested we have was participant connection. So a lot of the mentors and mentees kind of just connected on their own and they didn't get to meet other mentors and mentees. And we had a suggestion that people felt like this could have been a good opportunity for more like a cohort format. So moving forward, maybe incorporating that where we get more participant connection. And then another theme that came up was some women felt like 100 Rural Women needed to be more straightforward and upfront about what our goals with the network is. And that is definitely something that we can learn from and learn how to better communicate with women about. And then another thing was the timeline. So as I've said a couple times in this presentation, it was only a 6-week program and a lot of women wanted it to be longer and felt like there was just not enough time to get their goals completed or get as much experience as they wanted to in the program. So definitely thinking about extending it. Our next feedback was about our open hours. It was just a little inaccessible to some of our women, and we got a lot of feedback about how we can better communicate what those were. Some women were a little confused. So yeah, just thinking about that communication piece and how can we better clarify and communicate our goals and what these open hours are. And then the last thing that women said we could improve on are our biweekly topics. So a lot of women like them, but most women actually ended up not using them. So thinking about how they can be the most useful for our women in our program. And I thought this quote kind of summed up what kind of women we have in this program. It says, well, my schedule did not allow me to meet your expectations. And so moving forward, definitely, how do we make expectations for our wonderful, busy women that are doing wonderful things in their community?
And then sort of some more direct feedback that we got during our interviews on communications. A mentor said, I think the most successful way is to send an email and follow up with a phone call. And then they also said, I would suggest bulleted lists or something highlighted in certain colors, which was excellent feedback. And then on the website, the private web page, mentor said, after I looked at the other people's profiles, I wish I had done mine differently, so I would have been able to like edit it. And then on the sort of check-ins that we held, a mentor suggested, I wonder if there could be an email and it's like 1 or 2 questions and you can click like yes or no or whatever, like a poll. And so that's definitely something we're going to consider implementing moving forward.
So our next big theme was that a lot of women felt like 100 Rural Women was very flexible with the programming. One mentor said, it does not feel like homework, which is great. We are not trying to assign anyone homework, or we don't want our mentors and mentees to feel like it's something, oh, I have to do this. We want them to be excited and be like, ooh, I get to do this.
And some more feedback on flexibility. A mentee said, we felt you were very accommodating and we appreciate your flexibility. Another said, you all in that department are doing very well to lower barriers to participation. And so we really do appreciate feedback like this.
Our next theme was how women felt like the program was very unique. We've had people say that it was something they've never been a part of before, and it's something they've never seen before.
A mentor said, this program is beautifully unique. Mentee said, I think just this opportunity in general is something unique. And I just think it's one of those really unique gifts that I would wish for everyone to have. And so using that word multiple times really had that stick out for us.
And finally, something that I am happy we were able to convey was the fact that when women felt like an important aspect of the Civic Mentorship Network was the ability to be supported by other women, which is the goal of 100 Rural Women. So I'm glad we were able to convey that through our Civic Mentorship Network pilot.
Here are some more pretty impactful quotes from the end of pilot interviews that we took. A mentor said, most women just want to get things done and they want to do good work. They don't care about the credit. And I think that's one of the challenges for women. I was going to run for an elected position and people kept saying everything's got to be I. And I don't think women do I. We do we. Together we do this. Together we did that. And then another mentor said, you have some badass mentors on the list. They're that way in real life too. Like they're very inclusive, very supportive. They do stuff at like conferences to intentionally reach out to new women and make sure that they feel included. I believe this mentor knew some of the mentors and connected with them. So it's really nice that she felt the need to include that. And then another mentor said that mentors and mentees can both learn from the process.
Yeah, it's definitely not just mentees learning from the process. We've heard from multiple mentors that it's a learning experience for both of them. And I really appreciate that feedback and moving forward, knowing that mentors feel like they're getting something out of it too.
The lifelong learning is definitely a huge aspect of what we want to be incorporated in the program.
Yes. So a couple barriers we faced at 100 Rural Women throughout the process was timing and scheduling. Nothing new because, like I said, we are working with very busy women that are doing important things in our society. And so just scheduling and timing things can be a little bit of a barrier. However, we did get them and we were able to work and collaborate with them, which was fantastic. I'd say some of the other things were just getting responses in time. Like I said, these women are busy. Sometimes email is not the best because they are flooded with emails. And then also just some of the timing wasn't good where they weren't able to respond at our due dates. And then another thing is that elections change who's in office constantly. So when I was talking about my research last year in 2022 in the summer, just the fact that like women can come and go in office, and hopefully we see more women in office, but just making sure we keep that research up to date so that we can reach out to the new women maybe coming into office and things like that.
So finally, what's next for 100 Rural Women Civic Mentorship Network? What we plan on doing next is to incorporate the suggestions to adjust the program. And this is a phrase that kept coming up while we were talking about wrapping up the pilot, and also during the planning process. How do we build a better network for busy women, and how do we fit the program to their needs? So our plan is to build out the Civic Mentorship Network, and then we aim to build network across sectors, including public, private, healthcare, you name it. That's our goal.
And I just wanted to end our presentation with this quote. I think it's something we should take forward in our day-to-day life. It was from a mentor. She said, "I think women are often our own worst enemies as far as feeling confident about our abilities to do the job. We need to be authentic ourselves and let everyone else adjust to that. We just need to be our authentic selves." And I really appreciate that quote because it is important to get women in office. It's important to get women in any leadership position. And you should be able to feel like you can be your authentic self in that position. And then I just wanted to acknowledge a lot of the people that made this happen, the organizations that made this happen. We have all the organizations up here, and then just more closely related people down here. But yeah, just wanted to give a shout out to all of these wonderful people to make the Civic Mentorship Network Pilot happen. And that's all we have for you today. So we are going to start to move into the Q&A session. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can see everybody's face. And yeah.
So I'm going to facilitate the Q&A section. So if you guys feel the need to DM us, if you don't want to ask the question in the whole chat, feel free to DM me, DM Jasmine, DM any of our staff members, and they will get the message to us so that we can answer your questions. But yeah, what sort of questions do you guys have? And Jasmine and I and Teresa, we will do our best to answer them for you.
Yeah, this is Teresa. I'm just going to jump in quick while we get some questions together, but just listening to the presentation, I think one of the benefits that we had we had to pivot a lot with this project, and we ended up with a 6-week time period because we had to pivot so much just because of busy schedules. But I think one of the real benefits that we experienced was when we went away from that big Zoom meeting with speed dating and all those pieces, we ended up as a staff, we got to interview every woman that participated. And so that was such a cool benefit for us to be able to meet everybody. And then when we did our matching process, it was fun to see how people chose people, how they ranked people, because it just lined up so nice. So although I had envisioned this great big meeting where we all got together, from a staffing perspective, it was really amazing to be able to meet all these incredible women individually, and then and talk about what their goals were, what their interests were, and what they were looking for. So even though that was not planned, it definitely, I think, was a huge benefit to the program of pulling people together. And we did lose people in the program with a combination of health issues, moving out of state, and just super busy schedules. But another learning we had that I'd love to share is once we got people together, it was magic. So that was the other piece that we'll be working towards, is how can we figure out how to better connect women. And because once we did get women together, it was so much fun. It was really in all different experiences, but incredible. So I just want to throw that in there and thank Jasmine and Alexis for the presentation, because you covered it all very well. So thank you.
Yeah, and I already got a message or a question in the chat said, would you ever consider opening these mentee opportunities up for young women, maybe high school age girls, as they get ready to go into the world? Yeah, 100%. As you saw, we had a couple of mentees that were between the ages of, I want to say it's 18 to 26, and we didn't have any younger women that were interested, but yeah, 100%. We would definitely love to open that up to high school girls that are interested in going into the workforce, college, whatnot, just figuring out life. So yeah, thanks for that question.
I had another question sent to me if what sort of the outreach process looks like.
A lot of emails. So we have a listserv that we send emails to, I don't know how many women. We have a lot of women on our listserv. And then on top of that, it's direct outreach. So when I was doing that research in 2022, looking at the women in elected office, I just looked in Minnesota because there are 86 counties. And that took me a very long time. But we also went through that list and started trying to outreach the women in those offices by finding their emails. Since they are in a public office, we can find public information about them. So yeah, finding their emails and then doing direct outreach. We would love for suggestions if any of you have any better suggestions too.
And this is Teresa, I would just pop into, we have a very large mailing list that we mail to each week on our MailChimp. So that was one piece. I think some other suggestions that were made, which we use our MailChimp for, was, but there are other suggestions of like connecting directly with, identifying what are all those different organizations and networks in the state, which we have on our list, but how do we better engage with them? And what does that look like? So that's definitely something on our list to try and figure out what are the other ways to engage with organizations and figure out how we can do that direct. That's a lot of staff and time. So it's just trying to figure out how we can do a better job of that.
Another question that I see, a question from a participant, what was your biggest takeaway?
I would say our biggest takeaway is, how do we better support busy women? I feel like that's going to be like the theme moving forward. And that's always the theme of 100 Rural Women, because we work with some of the most amazing women, but also they just have so many hats to wear. They could be a mom, they could be doing this, they have like 3 different jobs, just having so many hats. So like, how do we support those busy women, but also how do we make sure that the program still keeps its authentic self and still stays unique, and also we can make it expand so that more women want to be part of it.
Yeah, for me, I would definitely say my biggest takeaway was the fact that the mentors and the mentees saw that as a sisterhood opportunity, or at least the one in particular who said that. And it just, it really brightened my day to see that and realize that we are the ones that are facilitating this sort of new form of sisterhood, and sort of how we can, again, as Jasmine said, this kept coming up. How do we better serve busy women? Another question that I see, what was your biggest surprise for the program?
I'm going to be honest, my biggest surprise was how many women were interested in the program. I was expecting like 10 women to sign up. And then when we got 26, because our goal originally was 30, and I'm like, oh, no way are we going to get 30 people to agree. And then we got 26, and I was really surprised, because it's like, this is something that women want. And it's one of those like positive surprises. What about you, Alexis?
I definitely think like I wasn't expecting this amount of excitement about the program. Like I thought people, like the fact that one of the participants said like it doesn't feel like homework felt really good to me, because really our main goal is just having women to connect and not have it be like another thing for them to do. So the fact that they actually thought that was kind of surprising to me, and I really appreciated that. Another question I see, what advice would you suggest to the mentees and mentors after this project?
Keep doing what you're doing. Don't be afraid to start a new program and join our program when it's no longer a pilot anymore. Also, mentors and mentees can reach out to their network, and if they had a good time in the Civic Mentorship Network Pilot, definitely suggest it to other women that are interested.
I agree. Yeah, I would definitely say also to kind of add on to that, really just do your best to support other women. That was my biggest takeaway, I guess. And the advice I would give to other women is don't be afraid to reach out to other women and support them, and just support each other. Another question I see, what support could have made things better?
Definitely having more interns. That can always make things better. And then I think looking back, probably collecting more than just emails, asking women what's the best way I can reach them, because sometimes emails were just not the best way. So I could have done more phone calls and more if women were interested in text messages or something like that. That's probably what I would have done.
Yeah, same. I really wish we would have collected varying modes of communication and really catered that more to serve um women who who prefer different modes of contact. I think that was a big thing that kept showing up for us as well.
You know, I'm just going to jump in here too, that I think that another piece that sort of is what could have made, you know, trying to think about getting things better, and what surprised me were that there were women that were just like embarrassed that they hadn't gotten back to us. And so then they just sort of backed away. And it was like, that's the other thing. It's like, people are busy. It's okay. It's okay if you don't get back to us. So it's just figuring out how to let women, you know, not be so worried that they don't get everything done. So I think that was a big thing for me. And when I think of support, that could have helped with that was probably more feet on the ground, and more ways to figure out how to better connect with women. And I think the other thing that I learned was, this was a short pilot. It just ended up that way because of timing, but we sort of sent women off on their own and had them connect. And I think a learning for me was, we matched people, and then we should have facilitated the first connection meeting and then gone from there. I think that just would have helped women get the ball rolling and get started, because I think what happened is then when folks didn't connect, then they were sort of like, oh my God, I never connected. So so live and learn. I think that's but it's a whole woman thing, that you get so busy and you start dropping the ball. And like I always tell the young women that I work with, hey, that's okay. You just got to let each other know when you need help. And that's a piece I think that we need to figure out how to integrate that into this program. But yeah, love it.
Another question I see is, has this experience changed the way you look at running for office? 100%. I was actually telling Teresa and Alexis that they decided to pull my civics course in high school. So me and the class of 2018 never learned civics. So a lot of my information about the government is through my own research, and then doing this pilot, I learned so much from the women, and I'm like, oh, that's what a county commissioner does. That's what this person does. And it's actually great to learn all that. And I'm like, oh, I guess maybe one day I'll run for office. No, don't quote me on that, because who knows if I would even make it through. But yeah.
I think my experience with like 100-Year-Old Woman in general, especially since I started off when we were doing the get to know you sessions, or the learn about it sessions, I mean, where women were talking about their positions, that's something that I really absorbed. And so I don't remember if it was Teresa or one of the women on the calls one day, or if it was just somebody supporting my position from elsewhere. But somebody said, like, why don't you run for school board? And I was like, I'm 18. But like, they were joking, but then it really got me thinking, like, oh, I actually could. And then like through having these conversations with a lot of the mentees and mentors, like it really did get me like, oh, I could do that, you know? So
It's all about demystifying paths to leadership. And I think that that's been a really fun part of this too. So I love it. Well, are we ready to wrap, you guys? I see we're on time. That makes sense to move to the next section.
Yeah, does anyone else have any final questions to ask us? You can unmute, type it in the chat. We'll give it about a minute and then we can move into our closing if no one has a final question.
I actually see one more real quick. Do you think the pilot would have benefited from providing educational materials?
So possibly we did have our learn about it sessions and those were supposed to be our educational material. We could have just not done a good enough job pushing those and outreaching about that, and like I don't know if I included them in my outreach emails, so definitely maybe, like I said, we need to look at how we communicate and also better our communication skills. I don't know what other educational programs we could have included. I would love to have suggestions if anyone had suggestions.
I love it. I think that's a really good suggestion. And yeah, email us. You can just email us at Teresa at 100 Row Women, and we'll just load it in there. There's links on the website to give us feedback. And I just think this was great. Thanks so much for all the work that you did, Jasmine and Alexis, and thanks, Holly, for stepping in here as we just started the semester. And I'm just really thankful for these young women and the work that they've done, and for all the women that participated in the network. It was an amazing experience for me just to meet everybody and learn about them and see the potential. And it just gave me, you know, that this is what keeps me going. It's just sort of like, oh my gosh, there's all these incredible women. We have to figure out how to better support each other. So that's what we're all about at 100 Row Women. So thanks for joining tonight. Thanks for everybody who came and the presenters.